Hello everyone, it's Friday, Erev Shabbos, the double Parshat of Nitzavim-VaYeilech. I hope everyone is doing well and had a good week. We want to first thank our two sponsors. We have two sponsors for this week's video, Dvar Torah. We'd like to thank Dr. Nelson P. Landy, who is sponsoring in memory of his mother, Helen Vera Prentice Landy, Chana Dvora Bat Meir Leib, Zichron Levracha, whose yahrzeit he recently observed. And it should be an aliyah for her neshama, and we thank Dr. Landy. And similarly, we want to thank Susie and Lenny Fold, who are sponsoring the Dvar Torah, in memory of Susie's father, Stanley Daum, Shmuel Aryeh ben Shraga, Esther Chana, Zichron Levracha, whose yahrzeit Susie is observing this Shabbat, and again, should also be a great merit, and an aliyah for his neshama, and we thank Susie and Lenny. One topic that has been discussed by many is how to properly blow the shofar this year with all the special concerns. That it shouldn't chas v'shalom become a super spreading event if chas v'shalom, the one blowing the shofar, was infected with coronavirus, and then somehow the blowing will spread the germs, spread the virus. And so there are some who have discussed the possibility of covering the wide end opening of the shofar. Others have suggested the possibility of one blowing the shofar standing almost like in a plexiglass case to protect everyone else who's around the person blowing the shofar. We're not going to deal now with all of those halachic details and issues, but one issue that is relevant to both of those suggestions is the critical requirement that a person hear the direct sound of the shofar and not a kol havar, not an echo. And the main sugya, the main discussion of that issue in the Gemara revolves around the case quoted in the Mishnah of hatokeya l'toch habor, someone who blows a shofar in a pit. And the Gemara explains, well, if you're inside the pit or inside the cave with the person when they're blowing the shofar, then you'll be fine because you'll hear the sound directly. But if you're standing outside of the cave or outside of the pit on top of the ground, then there's a concern that you're hearing an echo and you don't fulfill the mitzvah. Now, one could have suggested that these cases of blowing the shofar in a deep pit, in a well, or inside of a cave, if someone's standing inside or outside, these are just other examples of creative cases that the Talmud often discusses to highlight or to more clearly define halachos, even if they are not very common or practical cases. But in this instance, the medieval commentaries quote that there was a tradition that the reason why the Mishnah and Gemara discuss blowing in a cave is not for its theoretical value, but because at that time in the days of the Mishnah, it was actually very relevant. And that is because it was a time when a Shas Hashmad, a time when there were governmental decrees that forbade Jews from blowing the shofar, from publicly blowing the shofar. Even if not an official decree, but a Jewish person could be harassed or harmed if they were blowing the shofar. And at that time, the Jewish people couldn't have regular davening in a shul with large numbers in a public manner. And so what did the Jewish people do? They weren't going to give up. They weren't going to say, well, we'll just forget about shofar this year, even if it would be difficult, even if it would be challenging. They would find a way. And so what did they do? They went out into caves, and they blew the shofar in the cave. Or they dug pits. They climbed down into wells, and they blew the shofar. And we know that historically this repeated itself. There are incredible stories about people smuggling shofars into concentration camps and blowing shofars inside of concentration camps on Rosh Hashanah. And throughout Jewish history, the Jewish people were so committed to hear the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. They were willing to go to incredible lengths, to sometimes great risk, in order to fulfill the mitzvah. Why did we do this? Well, it is in our nature. And it is partially prophesized in this week's Parsha. How so? Moshe, speaking on behalf of Hashem, tells the Jewish people, Kisvu lachem es hashir hazos, write for yourselves this song, the Torah, which is the song of life. For Hashem, Moshe, speaking on behalf of Hashem, says, Ki adati, for I know, Ki timsena oso raos rabos vitzaros, when great and many troubles, bad things will befall upon you. Ki lo tishachach mipi zaro. But no matter what, the Torah will not be forgotten from your descendants. We will not fall so spiritually low to forget it. But it also means that no matter what happens, no matter the challenge, the Jewish people will never forget the Torah, will never give up on the Torah. We might have to do things in a different way. Maybe we can't do it as we normally would. But the Torah will not be forgotten. The shofar will not be forgotten. This year as well, we are facing challenges that, although historically are not unprecedented, the Jewish people have dealt with pandemics and other great challenges throughout our history relevant to Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and all times of the year. But for us, it is unprecedented times. And we, like the Jews of the Mishnah, we are not willing to give up. We're not just going to say, well, it's too difficult, so we won't have shofar this year. As much as possible, we're not literally digging a well or a pit, but we'll have to do things differently. And we'll make sure that we'll have as much davening as is possible and as safe and as appropriate for our community, that we can hear the shofar, whether you're coming to shul, or whether you'll hear it at home or in another location. The shul, the community, we are committed to do the extra work to arrange whatever minyanim are necessary. There are individuals who, although until now they've been hesitant, anxious to come to shul, but they're not going to miss Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It is not forgotten. They cannot go without hearing the shofar. And even for those who still cannot come to shul even on Rosh Hashanah, they don't feel comfortable, it's not advised by their doctors, they perhaps face the greatest challenge to be able to still have Rosh Hashanah even when they are alone. And so this time we face a challenge like the Jewish people have before, like the Jews of the Mishnah who had to blow in a pit. But the Torah will not be forgotten, as a Parsha promises this week. And although maybe some are worried that this Rosh Hashanah will be strange, will be different, will not feel like Rosh Hashanah, but in times of challenge, in times of crisis, that is when the deepest commitment can come out. This could be the most meaningful Rosh Hashanah. Certainly will be one of the most unforgettable Rosh Hashanahs that we will ever have. And so I hope everyone will have a good and meaningful Shabbos. This is the last Shabbos of the year. We're looking forward. In just 1 week, it'll be Erev Rosh Hashanah. Let us take the time to prepare, to think about Rosh Hashanah, what it means this year. We have so much more to daven this year than in recent years. And let us make it a meaningful Rosh Hashanah. Let us show Hashem how much we are committed, to what lengths we are willing to go as individuals, as a community. Again, in a way, of course, that is safe and appropriate for each person. Let us show that the Torah will never be forgotten, no matter the challenge. We are willing to even go down into a well to hear the shofar. And all of this should be a great merit for us. It should show Hashem how committed we are, how much we want to serve Him, how much we want to do His mitzvos. And all of that should be a merit that He should bless all of us for a good, healthy, and happy, sweet New Year. Good Shabbos and Shabbat Shalom.